How has urban birding for you changed in London and around the world in the time that you've been kind of pushing this as an activity?
That's a very good question, actually, Chris. Basically, in the early days, and when I talk about early days, I'm talking about even before then, when I was a kid. It was something that people kind of looked at you and thought, "What are you doing? Why aren't you going somewhere proper? Why are you, when migration time comes, why aren't you going to a headland? Why are you going to the middle of a city?" And for me, I always had the thought that migration occurs on a broad front, that birds occur everywhere. Just look up and you see. And I've seen that throughout my life. So to convince people was very difficult at first. Even birders, seasoned birders would live in a city but never bird there. They'd go out in the countryside at the first given opportunity. And I think over the years, my whole thing when I was born as the urban birder, born again 14 years ago, my whole thing was to try and engage people outside of our circle because they're new to it. They don't understand. And I think a lot of people, as people still do think this, but they kind of thought that you need to go somewhere to see things. But when you actually look at the numbers of birds that turn up in metropolitan areas, think about London. 370 different species have shown up in London, some first for the country turning up in London. The other day, I heard that there was a slate-coloured junco in someone's garden in London. First one for London. And you'd think that the whole British list is 620 different species. And to think that 95% of all those birds have turned up in urban areas is quite interesting. Urban areas, despite being poorer when it comes to habitat, there is still habitat there, often much more condensed, which means that when you watch birds in those areas, you actually see them closer because often the birds become used to humans, but also in much higher densities. And anything can turn up anywhere. So to me, it's a really exciting prospect. And over the years, I've noticed, certainly in Britain and in America and Americas, that the attitude towards urban birding has really become much more, let's get into it, we're really interested in this. In Europe, it's slightly different. People understand it, but when I walk around a city in Europe, particularly in Eastern Europe, people are looking at you like, what are you doing? So they still don't really get it. For example, I lead tours to Serbia, northern Serbia, and I go to a place called Kikinda, right on the border with Hungary. It's the best place on the planet to see long-eared owls. During the winter, I can lead a group for 4 days around that area and see upwards of 500 owls without any problem in the streets, on the trees. When I first turned up 12 years ago, the locals were like, now people are coming up to you, tapping on the shoulder, come and see my owls. They're now selling owl paraphernalia, owl t-shirts, owl mugs, tea towels, you name it. Owls are called sova in Serbian. So they've renamed November Savember. Kids dress up as owls in school for the whole month. So it's become very much part of their lives, even though it was part of their lives before that. But before then, they used to kill them. Now they see them as a great opportunity to make money. So ecotourism has really helped out. So I think that's another positive benefit of urban birding. It makes people realise that even within urban areas, there's habitats worth protecting. So I think there's a really interesting thing that's come from this. It's not just, a little pastime. It's actually a business, but also it's allowing people to connect to nature. And people in urban areas live in bubbles. So it's really a good way to get people to notice nature purely by opening their window, walking out onto the street and looking up.